In the winter of 1875, Luz Herrera, 18, felt the weight of her blindness pressing down like a lead blanket. In the rugged landscape of the Colorado Territory, where the mountains loomed like silent sentinels guarding secrets untold, Luz stood at the edge of town, inhaling the sharp, brisk air tinged with the scent of wildflowers, awakening from the grip of frost. Spring had begun to melt the harsh edges of winter, yet even as life budded around her, an oppressive cold lingered deep within her heart, a chill twining with the shadows of her circumstances. As she stood there, her fingers grazed over the delicate blossoms, their vibrant colors invisible to her eyes but alive in her imagination. Each soft petal whispered of a world bursting with life, rich with laughter and light, things she felt eternally distanced from. For as long as she could remember, her family had regarded her as a burden, an imperfect daughter hidden away and shunned by suitors. The townsfolk spoke in hushed voices, mercilessly mocking her blindness, claiming it was punishment for sins unknown. Each unkind word fed into her growing sense of isolation, carving deeper wounds that felt like chains binding her to a life filled with longing and despair. Her father, once proud and full of dreams, had abandoned her the moment her mother died. This left her in the bitter grasp of her Aunt Beatrice, a merciless woman whose sharp tongue seemed to slice through the fragile threads of Luz's spirit, leaving nothing but taut misery in its wake. Beatrice found delight in reminding Luz daily of her perceived worthlessness, chiding her for being a girl who could not see. "Why must I care for you?" Beatrice would sneer, her voice slicing through the stillness like the edge of a knife. "You're destined for nothing, a worthless burden upon this family." The sharpness in her words echoed in the chambers of Luz's heart, a relentless chant that had long since lodged itself into her consciousness. The bitter words became a mantra, each cruel syllable tightening its grip around her heart, compounding her fears until she felt as if she were crumbling into the earth beneath her feet. Every biting comment from Beatrice transformed into an anchor that held her in the depths of sorrow, leaving her adrift in a sea of self-loathing. Days blurred into weeks, and as empty as a dried-up riverbed, Luz felt her spirit fade under the relentless weight of her aunt's disdain. Despair turned to a monotonous existence, her days spent sewing and performing domestic chores, tasks that left little room for the fire of her spirit to ignite. Each stitch and sweep felt like they were tightening the noose of oppression around her, binding her life to the constraints of the duties imposed upon her. The house felt more like a prison, dampened by the echoes of Beatrice's relentless nagging, her rules woven into the very walls of the home. One fateful day, as winter's edge began to soften into the promise of spring, Luz sought refuge amidst the wildflowers. It was one of the few spots where hope seemed to shimmer lightly in the air, and she desperately gathered her courage to escape the stifling confines of Beatrice's control. Slipping away to the edge of town, she closed her eyes and let her fingers dance across the delicate petals, relishing the vibrant scents that filled her senses like a rich symphony of life. Suddenly, the joyful sounds of children playing nearby mixed with the chatter of townfolk drifting through the air, reminding her abruptly of the burden she carried. The warmth of the sun on her skin was quickly overshadowed by shadows creeping in as she heard distant hoofbeats growing louder, heavy and foreboding, like the approach of fate. As the unmistakable rhythm of hooves came nearer, an ice-cold grip of dread settled in the pit of her stomach. Her mind raced. Had more townsfolk come to taunt her again? She pressed herself back against the rough bark of a tree, desperately trying to merge with the landscape, wishing to become part of the flora encasing her in safety. Then, the sound halted suddenly, replaced by the low rumble of a deep voice. "Easy now, miss, I'm not here to harm you." Luz's heart raced furiously as she opened her eyes, only to find herself staring into the intense gaze of a mountain man, the likes of which she had only heard about in half-whispered tales amid hushed gatherings. Mateo stood before her, tall and rugged, casting a long shadow across the ground. His face bore the marks of hardship, toughened skin and scars, etched deep like the lines of a weathered map, revealing a history filled with suffering and loss, of a life carved out amidst the rocks and wilderness. "What do you want?" she asked, trepidation mingling with a flicker of curiosity swelling within her, unsure if she should be terrified or intrigued. "What's your name?" he replied, his voice low and steady, rolling calmly like the distant sound of thunder. "Luz," she managed to whisper, feeling the weight of the name heavy on her tongue, yet somehow liberating at the same time. "It means light." "Luz," he repeated, the sound resonating with an odd reverence, a beautiful name for someone who brings warmth to the shadows. In that instant, as a strange current of understanding pulsed between them, warmth blossomed within her, a flicker of hope igniting against the backdrop of her past. Perhaps this rugged figure, this man who lived removed from the judgments of society, could see beyond her blindness, recognizing the spirit inside. Hello, my dear friend. This is Jasper Ashwood, your narrator of Mountain Tales. Before we start, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from. A big hug to you all, and I hope you enjoy the story. As Jasper's familiar tone faded, Luz felt the intensity shift in the air. Mateo remained, his presence solid and steady like the mountains that surrounded them, offering a promise of something she had long deemed impossible. Something in his words sparked something deep within her, a yearning for connection that she had not known existed. Doubts crawled into her mind, but this man offered something more than what Beatrice had ever given her, an invitation to step outside the confines of her limitations. "Yes," she whispered, the word barely escaping her lips but filled with an urgency she could no longer contain. "I want to learn." And with that, the door of opportunity cracked ajar, allowing the first rays of hope to trickle through the darkness, encasing her heart. End of Block 1. Luz's heart raced as she stood before Mateo, the invitation cracking open her world like the first light of dawn. The wildflowers swayed gently around her, almost as if they too sensed that something significant was about to change. She felt a stirring of excitement mixed with trepidation, a cocktail of emotions she had not tasted in far too long. "Follow me," Mateo instructed, his tone inviting yet assertive, as he turned and began to stride down the rugged path leading deeper into the woods. Luz hesitated for just a moment, her heart pounding at the thought of leaving behind the only life she had ever known, but an urge to explore this new opportunity ignited within her. The soft crunch of leaves and twigs underfoot was grounding, reassuring her that she was not alone. As they walked together, Mateo's presence radiated a soothing strength. The sounds of rustling leaves and chirping birds filled the air, a natural symphony welcoming her into a new chapter. "The mountains are alive, Luz," he said, breaking their silence. "They breathe and speak. All you need to do is listen." With every stride they took, Luz allowed herself to indulge in the sounds surrounding them, the gentle babbling of a distant stream, the soft coo of doves nestled somewhere in the boughs of the trees, and the unmistakable rustle of animals skittering through the underbrush. She found herself leaning into those sounds, allowing them to wash over her, feeling connected to something larger than herself. After a moment, Mateo glanced at her, an approving smile on his rugged features. "You are beginning to hear it already," he noted, searching her face with a mix of hope and pride. "This land has much to share, if one only cares to listen." "Can you teach me how?" Luz asked, her voice barely above a whisper, eager yet cautious, hoping she was not crossing some unseen line. "Of course," he replied, his gaze steady, filled with sincerity. "But first, I want you to trust the ground beneath your feet." He gently pressed her hand to the earth where stones and roots intertwined. "Feel its rhythm." Taking a breath, Luz closed her eyes and let her senses take over. She could feel the solid earth beneath her, the trembling pulse of life thrumming just beyond the surface. In that moment, she realized the ground was much like her, imperfect, yet rich with history and resilience. Not just a foundation for her existence, but a living testament to survival amidst the storms. "Good," Mateo murmured. As they walked along the winding path, he pointed out plants and animals, offering names and stories that lit up her mind like a hearth in the dead of winter. "This is sagebrush," he explained, running his fingers through the soft, fragrant leaves. "And that's a wren nesting. They're small but fierce." With every detail he shared, Luz felt herself blossoming like the flowers around her, a flicker of self that had long been dormant awakening within her. Mateo's words revealed a tapestry woven from the threads of nature, and the world seemed to expand infinitely outside the walls that had confined her. They soon arrived at a clearing where the forest opened up, revealing a breathtaking panorama of towering peaks stabbing against the expanse of the sky. The sun hung low, casting a golden hue across the rugged landscape, illuminating the forest like a painting. It was so singularly beautiful that it took Luz's breath away. "This is my favorite spot," Mateo said, his voice almost reverent. "Feel the wind. It carries whispers from the mountains. Close your eyes and just listen, Luz obeyed, breathing deeply of the pine-scented air while concentrating on the hum of nature enveloping her. She could hear the distant roar of a waterfall, the rustle of leaves, and the gentle call of an eagle soaring overhead. Minutes passed, and when she finally opened her eyes, a newfound lightness filled her chest. "It's breathtaking," she gasped, truly meaning it. "I've never felt so alive." Mateo turned to her, the sunlight casting a radiant glow across his rugged features. For a moment she saw a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "You are alive, Luz, as much as the mountains and streams." He paused, his expression growing serious. "You must remember that the world's judgments do not define your worth. Only you can do that." "But I can't see," Luz replied, the weight of her truth heavy on her heart. "What good am I?" He shook his head vehemently, a fire awakening behind his gaze. "You can feel, and that is a gift far beyond sight. You hear the world's stories, and in time you will tell your own." His sincerity seeped into her, warm like sunlight, and she nodded slowly, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and determination. As they continued their trek through the wilderness, the sky began to shift, casting an orange glow that chased away the remnants of daylight. Mateo stopped to gather fresh herbs and roots, explaining their uses. "Mother Nature provides everything we need. We only have to learn how to ask," he remarked, his fingers deftly working through the underbrush. "Are they all safe to eat?" she asked warily, trying to grasp the intricacies of knowledge he possessed so effortlessly. "Most are, as long as you follow the rules of nature, and not your own fear," he replied, shooting her a reassuring glance as he handed her a sprig of wild mint. She sniffed it, the invigorating scent filling her senses, and smiled slowly. As they walked, Mateo shared stories of his life, tales filled with encounters with wild animals, narrow escapes from unpredictable weather, and deep insights into the power of the mountains. Each word was a brushstroke against the canvas of her mind, adding color and depth to her understanding of this untamed world. After hours of exploration, they returned from their adventure as twilight descended. Mateo led her to his cabin nestled at the foot of the mountain. "You're safe here," he assured her, as they made their way inside, the cozy interior filled with the warmth of flickering firelight. Stepping inside, Luz took in her surroundings. The cabin was humble but filled with character, accented by the scents of wood smoke and earth. A fire crackled in the modest hearth, its warmth inviting them forward. "Sit," Mateo instructed gently, moving to fetch supplies from the small kitchen area. She felt a tingle of nervousness as she watched him work. There was something soothing about his movements, precise yet unhurried. "Do you cook often?" she asked, curious about how a mountain man managed day-to-day tasks. "Only when I have company," he replied, casting her a playful glance. "Otherwise, it's cold beans and hardtack for me." Luz couldn't help but chuckle. "You should consider sharing your meals more often then." With Mateo's guidance, Luz joined in on the preparation, discovering that cooking was akin to crafting art. They laughed and shared stories, hers punctuated by the struggles she faced, his hinting at a past filled with loss but adorned with triumph. The sharing felt like a gentle exchange that built layers upon their growing bond. As the aroma of lavender and roasted vegetables filled the cabin, Mateo turned to her. "Thank you for being here today. You have a spirit that thrives under the sun, Luz. You simply need to learn to let it out." When dinner was served, they sat at the old wooden table, savoring the warmth of the food and the glow of the fire. Every bite was a reminder she was alive, participating in the unfolding story of her life. "Thank you for this," she said gently, looking up to meet Mateo's eyes, which shined with a promise of acceptance and friendship. "No," he interrupted softly, leaning forward. "Thank you for trusting me enough to step into your potential. You have the strength within you, Luz. You merely need time to see it." After dinner, the conversation flowed like the nearby river, free and unrestrained. Mateo listened intently as Luz spoke of her dreams and fears, the flicker of light she wished she could grasp. Both types of stories were rich with vulnerability and honesty, creating a bond that deepened amidst the flickering candlelight. As the hours melted into one another, silence fell upon them. A comfortable lull that whispered of connection developed, and trust carefully laid. Eventually, as night draped around them, Mateo rose from his seat, moving toward the small window to gaze out at the starlit sky. "These stars, Luz, they belong to you as much as they do to me. We are but two souls seeing the same universe from different angles. You may feel blind, but in truth, those stars shine equally for you as well." She joined him, captivated by the pinpricks of light sprinkled across the deep blue tapestry overhead, her chest swelling with an undiscovered sense of belonging. "I feel as if I can finally see," she murmured, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her. "That's just the beginning, Luce," he replied. In his solemn gaze she recognized the weight of sincerity, a promise that took root deep within her heart. As they stood together, wrapped in the blanket of night, Luce felt the first real stirrings of transformation, turning the gears of her spirit. The embers of hope began to glow brighter within her, igniting an unwavering determination that she would hold fast to through the trials ahead. In the warmth of their connection, a fragile pathway began to unfold, one paved with trust, with shared laughter, and the promise of courage against the darkness that had loomed over her life for far too long. End of Block 2. As the dawn broke the next morning, a soft light spilled into Mateo's cabin, casting a warm glow across the rustic wooden beams. Luce stirred awake, her mind buzzing with the euphoria of the previous day's adventure. She stretched, allowing the warmth enveloping her to seep into her bones, feeling the embers of hope still alive within her, radiating like the sun breaking through the clouds. Hurrying through her morning routine, she paused before the small cracked mirror hanging on the wall. There was a spark in her expression she had never seen before, an unrefined energy that hinted at new beginnings, fresh possibilities ahead. The worries that once plagued her mind had started to dissipate, replaced by a newfound eagerness to explore not just the mountains, but also herself. When she stepped into the kitchen, the sweet aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, intertwined with the sharp scent of brewing coffee. Mateo was already bustling about, and the sight of him filled her with warmth, sparking an irrepressible smile. "Morning, Luce. You're just in time. I saved a warm loaf and some fresh berries for you," he said, his voice deep and vibrant like the wilderness surrounding them. "Thank you. It smells incredible," she replied, her heart swelling with gratitude, feeling the luxurious softness of the bread against her fingers as she reached for a piece. Mateo watched her with a smile that twinkled in his eyes, as if he could see the growth radiating from within. "You ready for another adventure today?" he asked, as he set mugs of steaming coffee on the table. "Always," Luce exclaimed, taking a seat. "What do we have planned?" "In a moment we're going to head into the woods again, but first, I want you to help me collect some herbs and other supplies for the cabin," he replied, his eyes glinting with mischief. "You're going to be my little herbalist today." "Really?" Luce felt the thrill of excitement ripple through her. The thought of having a purpose today filled her with energy. "What should I look for?" "Ever heard of yarrow? It grows wild around here and is quite useful for healing," he said, leaning closer with that infectious enthusiasm. "It's a rather resilient plant, much like you." Flushing at the compliment, she grinned, feeling a sense of pride swell in her chest. The idea that she could contribute excited her, and she finished her breakfast with purpose, ready for whatever the day had to throw at her. After wiping her hands and gathering supplies in a woven basket Mateo had prepared, they stepped into the bright morning light together. The sun hung high in the sky, casting beams of light that danced across the wild, sprawling land around them. "Take a slow breath in," Mateo instructed as they walked. "Feel the air. Notice how it fills you." Luce did as he said, inhaling deeply the clean, pine-scented air. As she breathed in, she allowed herself to engage with her surroundings anew. She focused on the crunching of twigs underfoot and the fluttering of leaves above. The world came alive in ways she had begun to recognize, the sensation anchoring her within the present. "Good. We'll be collecting more than just yarrow," Mateo continued. "Keep your eyes and ears open. Nature has a wealth of remedies hidden in plain sight." They walked deeper into the woods, Mateo pointing out various trails and plants, each introduction a breadcrumb leading her deeper into understanding the secrets around her. Time slipped away as they ventured farther, and soon they arrived at a small clearing, rich with the vibrancy of life. "Here it is," Mateo said, smiling broadly, enthusiasm bubbling from his core. "Yarrow grows along this rock face." As they approached, he crouched down, demonstrating how to carefully extract the plant and identify its features. As he worked, he explained its various uses. "You can brew it in tea to help with fevers, and it can also be applied to wounds to speed healing." Luce observed everything closely, instinctively drawing near to help when he beckoned her over. The tender way he handled the plants resonated with her. It was as if he was gently cradling secrets of the earth, reverent of their power. "Go ahead, give it a try," Mateo encouraged, and Luce felt a thrill run through her. With careful fingers, she dug into the soil and pulled up a cluster of yarrow with determination. It was exhilarating to be a part of something so tangible, so rich with promise. "I did it!" she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with glee, knowing that this small victory was a step further away from the cage of her past. "Yes, you did, and it's beautiful," he replied, a beaming smile illuminating his face as he added her gather to their collection. The day turned into an effortless flow of exploration. They gathered various herbs and roots, laughing and exchanging stories amid the sun-drenched forest. Each moment felt filled with purpose, every discovery a celebration of newfound potential. While they wandered, Matteo regaled her with tales of mountain life, of encounters with wildlife and the different tribes he had encountered in his past. His stories spilled forth like a river, each twist and turn of his life unfolding against the backdrop of their exploration. He often glanced over to see Lucy's reaction, wanting to share his world with her while urging her to see her surprising capabilities. "Are you always this adventurous?" he asked, after sharing an amusing story of a boar encounter that had him climbing a tree. "I think I've only recently realized I can be," she admitted, her tone earnest. "For so long, I let my blindness define who I was, wherever I went." "No one can define you but yourself," he replied, his voice soothing like a gentle summer rain. "You've learned to see with your heart far more than others can with their eyes, and that is worth celebrating." The truth of his words wrapped around her, providing comfort as they continued their journey. Time passed without apprehension, the sun slowly inching its way across the sky, casting dappled shadows across the forest floor. When they finally returned to the cabin, their woven basket laden with treasures, a sense of achievement washed over Luz. The thrill of discovery filled her, promising possibilities beyond her dreams of yesterday. "Let's make a salve," Matteo suggested, breaking her reverie, and Luz nodded vigorously, eager to learn more. They settled in the cozy cabin, Matteo showing her how to prepare the ingredients. "We'll mix the yarrow with some beeswax and oil. The mixture will help all sorts of minor cuts and scrapes." As they worked side by side, she marveled at how quickly her confidence grew with each task he shared. The sensation of blending the earthy scents together felt liberating. Luz began to weave her spirit into the fabric of the world around them, realizing her blindness, instead of a limitation, had ignited her senses, a gift, allowing her to experience life when others only skimmed the surface. With Matteo's encouragement, she took the lead on the salve preparation. Every measure and composition became a beautiful dance of trust and connection, pulling them deeper into the heart of their respective journeys. Hours passed in companionable silence, broken only by their laughter and the soft crackle of the fire. When they finally finished, the salve was a soft green mixture, and Luz beamed with pride, holding it before her like a trophy. "You did it, Luz. This was all you," Matteo beamed, his praise igniting a warm flood of joy. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, feigning modesty. In truth, she knew she had emerged a new person through the very act of this collaboration. They had created something beautiful together. As evening settled around them, they shared a simple meal of their findings, paired with the remnants of their previous feast. Luz took a moment to absorb the environment around her, the flickering shadows dancing against the walls, the gentle warmth pooling in the room from the fire, Matteo's steady presence beside her. "I feel like I'm finally living again," she murmured, glancing at Matteo with sincerity that wrapped around them like a cozy blanket. "Each day is a step forward," he affirmed, matching her earnest gaze. "You're finding your way to bloom here, Luz. I can see it in every small victory." Emboldened by his praise, she decided to share her truth. "You know, I was always told I couldn't do anything because of my blindness," she confessed, her voice fragile yet steady. "I believed it for so long. I thought the world had nothing left for me. It's a common lie we tell ourselves, that we are limited by forces beyond our control," he reflected soberly. "But the truth is, you can redefine your path. Every day is an opportunity to reshape who you are in the hands of fate." His gaze held hers like a warm embrace. It felt liberating to be seen so fully, to know someone was willing to believe in her potential. Days melded into weeks, each one filled with their unique adventures in those early summer days. Each sunrise ushered in fresh discoveries about the land and, importantly, about themselves. Luz learned to navigate the trails with confidence, her senses becoming sharp instruments guiding her through the embrace of nature. They foraged and hiked, constructing simple traps to catch small game, and even spent evenings under the vibrant stars, weaving tales and dreams towards one another. Every so often, on still evenings, Matteo would share glimpses of his past, the loss of his wife and child during a harsh winter, stories that danced in and around the shadows of grief, yet laid bare the hope that still flickered inside him. As traditions formed, their closeness deepened. Each day spent together was another thread weaving their lives into a tapestry of trust, friendship, and an unacknowledged hint of something deeper. One evening, while sitting outside beneath a spectacular array of stars, Matteo turned to Luz with an unexpected seriousness in his expression. "I'm grateful, you know, for you being here. You've sparked something I'd lost." Overwhelmed by the gravity of his words, she lowered her gaze. "And you've given me life again," she replied softly, her heart racing as an unseen connection sparked between them. That moment lingered, a stillness settling over them. As if the universe held its breath, it seemed to acknowledge the unspoken bond stretching between them, fragile yet unyielding in its potential. Luz took a deep breath, contemplating the evolution of their relationship. As an undercurrent of intimacy filled the air, she sensed that fate beckoned her to lean into it, to take that leap of faith the universe had offered her. But still, she remained hesitant, uncertain about crossing that line that divided friendship and something more profound. As if sensing her inner turmoil, Matteo's expression shifted, filled with understanding and something warmer than friendship, a gentle encouragement, buoying her spirit, a promise that whatever path she took, she would not walk it alone. With an exhale, she traced her fingers along the edges of his weathered hands, yearning to bridge the chasm between them with connection and resonance. "You've taught me that strength takes many forms, only if we're open to finding it. The heart knows no limits," Matteo replied, earnest. "Trust that, Luz. Lean into it." As the evening wore on and the stars twinkled above them, Luz felt herself unraveling beneath the beauty of their shared experiences. The world felt rich, teeming with possibilities, as they both stepped closer to the threshold of feeling. At that moment, with laughter binding them together and the night wrapping its arms around them, Luz solidified a truth that had long eluded her. She was not just seeing her surroundings, she was feeling them, processing them, allowing herself to be wholly and unapologetically part of their vast unfurling tapestry. End of Block 3. The morning sun spilled through the cabin window, illuminating every corner with warmth and brightness that promised a new day full of potential. Luz woke, her heart light as she reflected on the previous night, the conversations shared with Matteo, the hope that flickered between them. It was still there, a soft glow illuminating the path ahead as she dressed for the day, her spirit filled with a sense of purpose. Stepping outside, she was greeted by the fresh scent of pine and flowers that perfumed the air. The garden they had started together thrived under the sun's tender caress, each plant a testament to their growing partnership. Luz found herself smiling at their handiwork. The patch they had tended promised vibrant herbs and vegetables to nourish them through the cool days ahead. "Morning, Luz!" Matteo's voice boomed from the edge of the garden, pulling her from her thoughts. He was busy tending to the young plants, his face lit with a sense of fulfillment that made her heart skip. "Good morning, Matteo," she returned, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "The garden looks amazing today." "It does, it's alive just like you," he replied, glancing up with a twinkle in his eye. "Care to help me with a few more rows? I need all the hands I can get." Together they began to work side by side, their laughter mingling with the earthy scents of tilled soil and sun-kissed blooms. Luz relished every moment spent digging, planting, and nurturing. As they worked, a comfortable rhythm settled between them, shared glances lingering a moment too long, smiles that felt too intimate. "Luz," Matteo said after a while, voice softening, "I can't tell you how grateful I am for your help. It's nice to have someone to share this with, someone who truly wants to be part of it all. Thank you for letting me in," she replied, her hands busy in the soil. "I've felt stuck for so long. Being here with you, out in the open, it's healing." Matteo paused, leaning on his shovel, keen eyes searching hers. "It's more than just healing, it's transformation. You're growing, Luz. I'm proud to witness it." He turned to resume digging, but his words hung in the air, coiling around them like an invisible tether. The sun climbed higher as they continued their labor, shadows stretching alongside them. With every seed planted, every weed uprooted, Luz felt a sense of pride swelling within her. The garden was a symbol of their bond, each plant representing the growth they shared, both in the earth and within their hearts. As dusk began to fall, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, the two retreated back to the cabin. After all the hard work, Matteo suggested they enjoy a simple meal from their first harvest, a dish made from fresh vegetables and herbs. They scoured the kitchen, gathering ingredients, and Luz felt a rush of exhilaration knowing they had contributed to each part of the meal. "Everything tastes better when it's made from what we've grown," Matteo remarked as he chopped some carrots. "It really does," she agreed, taking note of the way his hands moved with purpose and precision. They worked in harmony, their movements intuitive as though they had been preparing meals together for ages. After they cooked, they settled down at the table, the modest meal laid before them. The rustic charm of the setup, the flickering candlelight casting friendly shadows on the walls, felt cozy and intimate, and for a moment, Luz savored the contentment wrapping around her. Matteo raised his mug, his eyes holding her gaze. "To hard work and new beginnings." "To hard work and new beginnings," Luz echoed, clinking her mug against his. As they ate, conversation flowed freely, laughter punctuating their discussions on life in the mountains, the absurdities that came with it, and shared memories of the wilderness they were learning to love. Hours passed in a wonderful haze, the warmth of camaraderie enveloping them. It felt as if time no longer mattered as they sat together, the world outside fading away. After dinner, the conversation turned to more serious topics, the hopes and dreams that guided each of their journeys. "Do you ever think about what the future holds?" Luz asked softly, her heart racing as she leaned forward. Matteo paused, his expression thoughtful. "I do. I think about building a life in this place, a life that embraces the beauty surrounding us while allowing freedom to grow." "What does that life look like for you?" she probed gently. He chuckled, his eyes sparkling with passion. "It involves cultivating not just this garden, but also connections. Friendship, love, family," he added, his tone tinged with sincerity. "Finding a way to bring people together, rooted in the land." His words struck deep within her, resonating with the unacknowledged feelings stirring inside. She wanted to dive into that dream with him, to explore the depths of those connections that he yearned to cultivate, both within himself and with her. But even as she waded into that possibility, uncertainty crept back in, casting shadows on her mind. "What if I'm not ready, Matteo? What if I mess things up?" she questioned, her voice trembling with vulnerability. He reached across the table, his calloused hand covering hers, enveloping her cold fingers within the warmth of his. "You won't mess it up. Life has a rhythm to it, and we find our way as we go. Just take it one step at a time with me." His touch sent her heart racing, and the electricity of his presence permeated the air. The sensation felt like home and adventure all at once, drawing her closer to the precipice of the moment they were on the verge of sharing. As he gazed into her eyes, she could hardly breathe, holding on to that uncertain yet promising leap. But then the distant sound of laughter from the direction of the trading post disrupted their moment, bringing a pang of awareness. The reality of the outside world rushed in, bringing with it a reminder of the burdens they would have to eventually face. "I should probably check in," Matteo said, his hand slipping away reluctantly. "There might be more that needs tending to after today's chaos." "A little more chaos?" she smirked, shaking her head. "You truly thrive on this." "Something like that," he chuckled lightly, "but I'll be back soon." As he stepped into the cool evening air, Luz watched him go, her heart now a chaotic storm. The moment had held so much promise, yet it felt shattered by the instability of the world that surrounded them. In between the uncertainty brewed a longing that throbbed against her heart. After Matteo left, Luz wandered outside to feel the gentle night breeze on her skin. The stars winked above, their timeless reliability soothing her inner turmoil. The air was thick with the sounds of nature, creating a symphony of life. The whispers of the trees, the chirping of crickets, and the rushing of the stream. It grounded her. Closing her eyes, she let herself breathe, indulging in the feelings of possibility swirling within her. What if she opened her heart fully? What if she let herself step beyond boundaries? The struggle of her past could offer resilience for her future, a future that could intertwine with Matteo's dreams if she would only dare to embrace it. As she stood under the night sky, the stars shimmering, she resolved to not let fear dictate her decisions any longer. She had come so far already, unfurling like the petals of the wildflowers in the meadow. "It's time to leap," she whispered into the night, her voice steadying. When Matteo returned later that night, the moment was electric in its anticipation, but Luz held her resolve firm. He stepped through the door, the cool air trailing in behind him, his expression open and warm as he surveyed the cabin. "Everything's settled at the post," he said, shaking off his distraction. "No emergencies tonight." "Good to hear," she replied, holding his gaze, feeling the rhythm of her heart quicken. "Did you miss me?" he teased lightly, closing the distance between them, his eyes dancing. "Maybe," she admitted, a shy smile pulling at her lips, her nerves bubbling to the surface. "Let me show you something," he said suddenly, a mischievous glint in his eye as he stepped back out onto the porch, gesturing for her to follow. Curiosity piqued, she joined him outside where the stars twinkled overhead, shimmering bright against the canvas of the night sky. "This way," Matteo directed, leading her down an old, familiar path surrounded by towering trees. The familiarity of their surroundings brought comfort and excitement, and each step felt like they were moving toward more than the physical destination. After a few moments, they emerged from the forest into a clearing bathed in moonlight, a hidden glade she had not yet seen. A small brook babbled nearby, the sound mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves. And there, standing in the open glow, Matteo turned to her. "Look at this place, he said, his voice hushed and reverent. "Isn't it beautiful?" With hardly a moment to breathe, Luz stepped forward, her breath catching at the sight. The beauty around her enveloped her, weaving into the heartstrings of her soul. The night sky, the disappearing trees, the bubbling brook, all sang to her with the promise of intimacy and connection. "Yeah, it's stunning," she breathed, her heart fluttering. "Just like you," Matteo said softly, closing the space between them, his eyes sparkling beneath the soft light. "I've wanted to show you this since you arrived. I thought you might appreciate it." There was a silence that stretched between them, deep and resonant, filling with unspoken words and glances laden with longing. With the moonlight painting their faces, Matteo's gaze held hers, and the air felt electric in its charge. "Luz," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "you mean so much to me. I didn't know I could find connection again until you came into my life. You've changed everything, and I want you to know that." Her heart soared as she processed his words, whispers of truth and vulnerability sparking a wildfire within her. "I feel the same way, Matteo," she replied, her voice steady despite the exhilaration bubbling within. "You've shown me I can be more than I ever thought I could be." He stepped even closer, their breaths mingling in the cool night air, an inviting warmth enveloping them both. "What does that mean for us?" he asked, his voice low and sincere. "I want it to mean everything," she confessed, her heart pounding against her chest as she gazed into his eyes, feeling a deep sense of contentment settle within her. "Then come here," Matteo murmured, reaching out to draw her closer until their bodies barely brushed. The world around dissolved away, leaving only the aching connection that pulsed between them, raw and real. His heart lay bare in his gaze, and in that fragile moment, Luz stepped into the unknown. The leap she had hesitated to take finally came into fruition as she wrapped her arms around him, embracing the courage she had gathered through their journey together. Matteo's arms encircled her, pulling her close against the cadence of his heartbeat, a rhythm that felt like home. The warmth radiating around them anchored her as they stood wrapped in each other's embrace, the moonlight weaving a tapestry of soft silver threads around them. In that instant, surrounded by the magic of the universe and bound by unspoken promises, Luz discovered the beauty of the leap she had taken. They were no longer just friends, but two hearts intertwining, ready to walk forward together into the light of their shared future, hand in hand, embracing the warmth of the love they had both dared to cultivate. End of Block 4. The warmth of their embrace lingered as Luz and Matteo stood under the vast expanse of stars, each heartbeat echoing with the unspoken promise that had bloomed between them. For the first time in so long, Luz felt truly free, liberated from the burdens of her past. Yet as their relationship deepened, an unsettling awareness tugged at the corners of her mind. Their burgeoning love was a precious bloom from the soil of their trials, but the world outside held challenges that were daunting and unpredictable. "We should head back," Matteo said gently, breaking their moment. There was a serious undertone in his voice, a reminder that life awaited them. "Back to reality," Luz noted, glancing up at him, searching for his reassurance. "Tomorrow there's a meeting in town regarding changes to the homesteading laws," he explained, rubbing the back of his neck. "I want our voices to be heard." A wave of anxiety washed over her, fluttering her heart. "What happens if they don't listen?" she asked, her voice soft, barely above a whisper. Matteo took a deep breath, grounding her with his steady gaze. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. This is our home, and it matters. The next day dawned bright and clear. Anticipation hummed in the air. Luz moved through the morning rhythm of the cabin, preparing breakfast but finding it hard to focus. Memories of their night together formed a warm cocoon around her, but anxiety about the meeting cut through the peace like a knife. As they approached the town, the bustle of voices grew louder, the scent of earth mingling with the sense of humanity, smoky wood, fresh bread, and the tang of livestock. Yet beneath that cacophony was an undercurrent of tension, fed by worry about the new laws that hung like a dark cloud over their community. Matteo led them into the meeting hall, which buzzed with conversation, the atmosphere thick with concern. Luz observed the townsfolk rallying together, their faces a mix of determination and fear. A shared struggle united them, an invisible tether that connected each person in the room. The mayor began the meeting, his tone authoritative as he outlined the new policies that threatened their way of life. These regulations are the result of increasing homesteader numbers, he proclaimed, his voice booming. They'll ensure proper management of our resources. Each word he spoke felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. The implications were clear. These changes could strip them of their rights, park their dreams in the grey shadow of regulations they hadn't chosen. Matteo, ever the pillar of strength, stood up, his voice firm. We came here for one reason, to cultivate our lives in freedom. You can't impose these controls on us. We deserve the right to make our own choices on our own land. Applause erupted around the room, energizing the crowd. Luz felt her heart swell with admiration for him. He stood for their dreams, fighting for the community they were building together. Then Oliver, a local rancher notorious for his harsh methods, entered the hall. The room grew tense. The energy shifted as he approached the front. What's all this ruckus about? He drawled, an arrogant grin on his face. You think you're entitled to thrive without proper oversight? Luz shivered at his tone, her heart racing. The fear he instilled in those around her was palpable. She took a step closer to Matteo, her protector, seeking comfort in his presence. This land is about our efforts, Matteo shot back vehemently. You're threatening our future and our right to it. Oliver smirked, leaning back on the podium, and the confidence twisted into a sneer. You all are choosing to fight a battle you can't win. Best you accept your place. Her blood boiled, a righteous fire igniting within her. This wasn't just Matteo's battle, it was theirs, and she couldn't remain silent. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. We'll decide our place based on our efforts, not your power. The murmurs of support rippled through the crowd, a wave of unity swirling around them, gaining momentum. She felt their backing, their faith, as if the whole community stood behind both of them. Every person here has worked hard to cultivate their dreams, Matteo said, his voice firm, echoing her sentiment. We're not just surviving, we're thriving together. Light cheers erupted, enthusiasm spilling through the hall, revitalizing the room again. But before the wave of unity could crest, Oliver wouldn't relent, his presence a weight. Face the facts, he sneered. This wouldn't be the first time a bunch of hopefuls got crushed by the system. You're naive to think you have a chance. But Luz felt emboldened, vulnerable, yet strong in their collected voices. It's not about chance, it's about courage, she exclaimed. We've seen what our union can create. We choose to stand together, not divided. With a newfound anger sparked in her voice, folks began to rally, clapping and chanting their support. It was a feeling of momentum, a rising tide of determination that few had experienced before. Yet there was discomfort in the air. That weight was still present. Oliver's displeasure a dark cloud threatening their collective progress. The atmosphere grew thick with urgency, as it became clear they were at a tipping point. Matteo took the floor again, passionately expressing their plight, calling upon the experiences that defined them. We are builders of a community here, not just mere occupants of land, he pushed. This is a place where all voices deserve to be heard. Cheers erupted, the harmony swelling with every word. Luz held on to Matteo's hand tightly, their fingers interlocked like their dreams intertwined. They were both willing to fight for what they had built and what they believed in as a community. But just as hope climbed to the surface, the mayor attempted to restore order, raising a hand. Let's not turn this into chaos. We can discuss this rationally. Desperation filled the room, voices rising in protest against Oliver's presence and the mayor's suggestion. There was too much at stake, and they wouldn't remain quiet any longer. As the chants swirled, a sense of purpose unfolded. Luz and Matteo stood together, unyielding against the pressure, not just for themselves but for the dreams and futures surrounding them. The fight against Oliver's forceful presence battled against the tide of intimidation that had long plagued the town. Here they were, united in their resolve, refusing to be subdued. "We will not quiet ourselves," Luce proclaimed, her voice steady amidst the chaos. "As a community, we will not back down. We deserve to thrive here, to live by our own choices." And in that moment, with their hearts entwined in strength, the tide turned. They shared a vision, a collective heartbeat of their community echoing that longed for freedom. The power of unity fueled their determination, igniting a fire that would not be easily extinguished. Mateo squeezed her hand, the warmth anchoring her resolve. Together, they were ready to face the challenge ahead, standing shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors against the dark forces that sought to disrupt their dreams. With hope blossoming amid uncertainty, they prepared to draw their line in the sand, united in purpose, ready to confront the challenges that lay ahead. End of block. As the voices swelled in the hall, a palpable energy electrified the air, fueling the fire within the hearts of the townsfolk. Luce and Mateo stood at the forefront, their hands intertwined, two pillars of unwavering strength amid the tide of uncertainty. The fervor in the room was impossible to ignore, a force combining collective dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. "Let's not lose focus, people," the mayor shouted over the rising din. "This isn't a debate, it's a discussion. We can negotiate responsibly." His words were strained, attempting to pull control back from the chaos enveloping them, but there was no denying the urgent need for action. "What responsibility means to you, Mayor, is just a stranglehold over our lives." Mateo's voice resonated, a clarion call that cut through the mayor's attempt at order. The crowd responded with renewed energy, clapping and shouting their agreement, unwilling to be reined in by platitudes. Luce felt her heart race. They were at a tipping point, and justice loomed just within reach. "What is there to negotiate?" she called out, prompting silence to fall momentarily. "These laws will strip us of our rights. We won't stand idle while you take away what we fought so hard to build." The grim determination in her voice resonated with the crowd, and a new wave of unity surged through the hall. The determination that radiated from Mateo and Luce up front became infectious, urging others to rise and share their voices. One by one, neighbors stepped up to speak, sharing their stories of hardship and resilience. A farmer recounted his struggles to make ends meet, and an elderly woman spoke of losing her husband to the very forces that sought to oppress their community. With each narrative, the shared pain forged deeper connections, drawing them closer together in their fight. Oliver's smug demeanor faltered as he observed their collective strength. The tide had undeniably shifted against him. He exchanged frustrated glances with the mayor, who struggled to maintain authority in the rapidly escalating situation. Luce felt energized by the voices of her neighbors rallying around her. "It's time for us to take control of our destiny. No more fear. We will stand united." Mateo nodded, drawing everyone's gaze back to him. "Together we can challenge this. We have neighbors who care, resources that can be shared, and the strength of our resolve." Cheers rose once more, echoing in the hall, invigorating them all as they embraced a shared purpose. This was no longer a fight for land. It was a fight for their dignity, their autonomy, and the life they had worked for. Yet just then, a commotion erupted at the entrance. A group of men entered the hall, clad in the dusty garb of ranchers, faces shadowed with determination. They were Oliver's supporters, there to counter the emerging alliance formed by Luce and Mateo's community. "Look at this gathering of fools," one of them spat, sneering down at the crowd. "You really think you stand a chance? You're wasting your time. The law is on our side. You're just a bunch of dreamers." But rather than quell the crowd, their harshness ignited a further fire within them. Luce felt her spirits lifting, every voice in the hall rising against the new challenge. "Dreamers built this land," she shouted, emboldened by the support surrounding her. "We are not powerless. We are strong, and our dreams are worth fighting for." As the opposing group yelled back, Luce realized that the moment had come, not just for their voices to be heard, but for their resolve to be proved through action. A courageous woman from a neighboring homestead stepped forward. "We'll prove that when we unite, we're stronger than any opposition." The crowd erupted into a frenzied agreement, filled with shouts of encouragement and applause. "I say we march," Mateo called out, his voice rising to match the fervor of the moment. "We go to the town square and present our case. Let the whole community see our strength." The crowd buzzed with fervor, people nodding in agreement. their spirits rising like an unstoppable wave. Yes, let's show them we will not be intimidated. With that declaration, Luz felt hope surge through her body. This was their moment, a call to action transforming the tide of despair into a river of empowerment. They wouldn't just gather in this hall, they would march together side by side, a testament to their resilience and solidarity. As they exited the building, a flood of warmth enveloped her. The town square came into view, buzzing with the sounds of life. The sun shone brightly upon them, illuminating the path they would take as they united their voices against the injustices looming over their homesteading community. With Mateo by her side, Luz felt a newfound determination coursing through her veins. They were no longer just individuals, they were a force, a community standing tall against those who sought to diminish the dreams they had fought to build. As they marched forward, their collective voices sang a song of hope, echoing into a bright future, ready to claim the destiny that was rightfully theirs. In that powerful moment, Luz knew that together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. They would weave a tapestry of resilience and strength, proving to the world that their dreams could not be crushed. The fight for their future was just beginning, and they were more than ready to embrace it. End of Block 6.